So, here comes a very unprepared chapter 5. These have been getting harder and harder. The subject matter's been getting harder and harder on me. I'm sitting outside. Getting some fresh air. It's been so stinking cold. So cold. For so long. One thing about living in this part of the country is it gets cold, but just gotta wait a couple days and it warms up. But we have had 2 weeks of just bitter cold after a week. It was the coldest January I remember in a long time. And I've been here 40 years. But it's not where I was at the end of chapter 4. End of chapter 4, we were getting ready to move again. Me begging and trying to come up with some way to stay in Utah. But I was not successful. So I was drug with the family and left my twin-ish. Which was, I think we were getting a little acrimonious at this point, but still never lived without her. So that was quite the adjustment, to be honest with you. We ended up taking my stepsister, that'd be the middle stepsister, who decided not to move with us to El Paso. She was on a summer break from university, and so she spent the summer with us where we moved, which was Wisconsin. So my dad loaded us up, and actually I think we were professionally moved to the state of Wisconsin. Could have been Mars. Again, never heard of it, didn't know anything about it. As we're traveling to it, we keep going north, but we went through the ranch, so then we would have come through Nebraska, and then probably through the south part of, I hope we didn't go to Iowa that time, but through the south part of Minnesota, or maybe up through part of Iowa, and then up to like Rochester, that area in Minnesota, and up into Wisconsin. It got prettier and prettier, the woods, and it became very pretty, which I liked. I was moving to the woods now. It wasn't the Ozarks, but it was the woods. It was the northern woods. And we moved there after school got out, so we've got the summer vacation there. My dad gets a little rental house, which was next to a dairy, and that's where we lived until he could buy a house. As I said, the stepsister lived with us, which was great because it was sad to not have her, and she got a job at a factory for the summer, and I found an ad in the local newspaper, somebody looking for a nanny from Chicago. So I wrote to the ad, or we called the number and spoke to the people, and basically my dad is going to stick me on a bus and send me down to Chicago, and the people will be there to meet me, and it was all going to work out fine. And so that's what he did. He stuck me on a bus, and I went down to Chicago, and the people weren't there where they were supposed to be to pick me up, which was quite a problem for my parents, because here I am in Chicago. Luckily, it's the North Shore, so, it's not Chicago proper. Here I am, between my junior and senior year of high school, but there was a confusion. The man didn't go to the right place, so eventually he did show up and pick me up, and all was well, and brought me back to this big, beautiful home. It was one of the traditional historical homes of Lake Forest. So it did have that going for it. Big home. One of those that has their own big library and a big, it is a very, very nice home. Biggest thing I'd ever been in, and most prestigious home I'd ever been in. And they had a little boy who was just nearing 2 years old, cute as a bug. And then this little girl, she was 5 months old. The mom was a redhead, pointy nose, thin-lipped, kind of thin woman. She had a severe look about her, but she was cool. I liked her. I mean, she wasn't buddies, but she was cool. And her husband was a vice president of Chicago First National Bank. So, anyway, but this little 5-month-old baby had this shocking little tuft of red hair, and it just like, oh, I don't know if that's where my problem with gingers had began, but it was a little difficult to love her. But she was a child. I grew to love her, and it was all fine. But when I first saw her, like, oh, this child is ugly. Where the little boy was just cute, and blonde hair, blue eyes, and just cute little boy. But then there's a little girl who is took a minute to love. So I was a summer girl. That's what they called us. And they'd get them all in, from rural areas was the thing, to get a good homespun girl. And so there was a bunch of us, and we would have activities where we'd meet up and, like at the country clubs and stuff, but we met up, and then we would do activities together. We'd go to concerts together, or, do things on our days off, and we go to each other's houses and hang out. So it was kind of a cool little community of all these teenage girls. They're there for the summer to watch the kids, so the moms won't have to be, stuck at home with them all the time. And it's not like these were working moms, but it just gave the moms some freedom. Anyway, it went pretty good. His mother lived on Michigan Avenue, where it just starts turning residential. The end of ways past the Playboy Club. That's all I know. And she was Riverside, though, or Lakeside, and had this big, beautiful apartment. And there was money in the family, obviously. But what was crazy about that is, and they were doing remodeling, but they had the tiniest kitchen. So here's this sitting room, the living room, whatever, and it was just huge, and it had, this molding, and I mean, this place had been there for a long time, and antiques and history and wealth, and it was just so beautiful. And they had this kitchen that was the size of a shoebox. Basically, you could get in there and turn around and hit everything, and that was it. And I just couldn't understand why such a big, palatial, beautiful apartment had a shoebox kitchen. That just never, I didn't understand that. And I think the kind of homes that I lived in, we had average-sized kitchens, we could never have existed with living with something like that. Later in life, I learned that rich people eat out or have food delivered. They don't really make dinner often. So that was shocking. I'm gonna have to go in because I am freezing. I don't think I can pause this, so you're gonna have to come with me. And Frankie is out here with me. He'll probably show up when he sees me trying to get in the door. But come in my chair. And I'll leave that there. But I'm taking this in the house. Okay. Frankie, I'm going in, buddy. It's too cold for Leslie. So, oh gosh, it's so warm. Frankie, come on, babu. Anyway, so yeah, my job was to take care of the kids, and they had a gardener named, I don't remember now. I don't remember. Muhammad or something like that. I don't know. Abdul. maybe, I don't know. Anyway, so he came, and then they had cleaning people. I was nanny. Frankie, come on, babu. And just leave it open for him a little bit. Let the heater run extra. So, anyway, and they'd had parties and all of this. And, okay, so the night I get there, she has burnt peas. Yeah. She had peas in a pan and burnt them, and they were like welded onto the pan. So my first job first day was to clean that pan. And oh my gosh, it was horrible. And I thought, oh, this is, and when I get there, she's like, I hope you can cook. She says, I burnt peas. And I'm like, oh, like, even at a tender age of 17 or 18, whatever I was like, you burnt peas, but I kept that in my head. I did not say it out loud. Frankie! So, yeah, and they had just come back from Belgium, and she had all these French cookbooks. And so she said, do you want to cook? Yeah, I'll cook. And she says, I have all these cookbooks, we've just come back from Belgium. She says, unfortunately, they're in French, but if you need help, I can, tell you what the recipe is. I'm like, okay. So, whatever I needed to purchase for these dinners, they bought, and I would just have to make the dinner out of it. That was cool. In fact, I just am remembering this now. Yeah, that was pretty cool. And like eggplant parmesan and, caviar and all this, I got to play. And they were very receptive to anything because whatever I was cooking was 100% better than what she was turning out. So, yeah, that was cool. And we just spent the summer doing things. They were invited to this party up in Lake Geneva. And so I went with, and everybody, there's a different feeling around people who have money and have had money a long time. They don't talk about the money. They wear normal clothes. It may be a higher brand, but they don't put on, you know what I mean? And they just wear clothes and they don't talk about the money. They're very nice. Like they're just people, when they're together. And they just don't put on airs in front of each other or anything. And so they were very nice. And so, everybody who was there, and there were maybe another aunt nanny or two there. And we were all treated very well. And even asked, hey, do you want to go on a boat ride? Because it was right on Lake Geneva. This house is amazing. I've dreamt of that house. And, but anyway, so yeah, we got to take a ride, on the lake and do stuff and just be part of everything. And of course, with, mind of keeping eye on the kids and keeping them happy and doing stuff and, involving them in the activities and whatnot. But it was really cool. The story is there were two houses built pretty similar. I mean, you drive in and there's a caretaker's house. And you drive a little further down the driveway, and off to the right there's tennis courts. And then you drive further, and there's this big circular driveway, and this house is just amazing. But it's old, and it hasn't been loved or really cared for a while. Like the tennis court was overgrown in places, and the caretaker's house was in okay shape, but the house wasn't in bad repair or anything. It just hadn't been loved. And it essentially probably looked like a vacation house anyway. I mean, a heck of a vacation house. And the story is there were two houses, and one was a gambling casino during Prohibition, and the other house was where the mobster lived. And so I don't know if we were celebrating in which one was which, But I can tell you, when you walked in the house, big double doors like you see in the movies, and there's this long hallway, but at the end is this massive gilded mirror. And so you see yourself walking into the house, and then, you turn, and then you're in this living room, and it was so cool. It was so cool. I remember on the ride back, I was like, oh, I want that house. He's like, yeah. He says, you'd probably have to own Standard Oil to have the house. I said, I just want to fix it up, and, I don't know. It was really a cool house. And of course, it was an older house, probably built in the early 1900s, late 1800s. So it was, a beautiful old home with beautiful woodwork and just delicious. So, working in Lake Forest was quite an experience. I got to learn how the other half lived. Of course, there's it. If you go into Lake Forest proper, the downtown area, it's not a big town at all. You can see a lot of the rich people, and they're dressed and they walk around and they have bags, and it's all this kind of whatever, Stepford Wivey looking. But the people that I worked for and the houses that I visited, these people were not like that. So these people really weren't putting on airs, and they were just who they were. But you definitely could go into town. I would say it's mostly the younger people, wearing these peppermint colored, like you see some movies and they're all using pastels. Of course, it was 1980, 79, 80. It must have been 1980. It's so funny because that movie Caddyshack came out the same year. And it was like, oh my gosh, like I'm living around Caddyshack, just the whole, like the way people were and stuff. It was really crazy. I got to go down and spend time in Chicago, and, went to the water tower, went to the John Hancock building, and, I don't know if it was Marshall Fields at the time, but huge, like multi-floor, shopping center. And I did stick my head into the Playboy Club. I didn't see anything. It was a bar and men drinking at a bar. I didn't see anything. I got out of there as quick as I could. I mean, I didn't go in, and you don't have to pay to get in, but I just walked in enough to kind of see what it looked like, Of course, that's when Hugh Hefner lived there, probably there between, but not that I was going to see him, but the Playboy Club was an attraction in Chicago at the time. And so, yeah, I got to kind of have some time doing that by myself, and that was pretty cool. And I know a couple of us girls went to a evening concert at Ravinia, which is an outdoor concert on the shores of Lake Michigan. And we saw Roberta Flack, I think, there. It was a very nice concert. It just beautiful, and the music, and it was really nice. Rode the train back, me and a couple of the girls, and there was this guy on the train, and he lived in Lake Forest, and we found that out. We're all talking, and we're like, you are so lucky to live there, like, to live in those houses. And he just was talking about how, his dad isn't paying attention to him, and he's dressed a little rebel-y anyway. And it was just this whole really funny thing, and not funny, but, just kind of like, I don't know, a reality check for us girls, And I remember when the Breakfast Club came out later, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, this is so, like, it is funny how it kind of echoes some of my experiences, different movies and stuff. But, yeah, so I worked this summer, and it was time for me to go home, and I'm trying to potty train this little boy, and we're working on it. I think I've pretty much got it done. And his mother, the one who lived on Michigan Avenue, wanted me to stay because she felt like maybe I would be better in helping with the kids. But I said, no, I got to go back and finish high school. She's like, I will give you money, you know, you can get your GED or whatever, and really try to get me to stay. But I said, no, I want to go back and finish high school. I miss my family, blah, blah, blah. So I went back and back to Wisconsin. So I didn't even really get to land there very long before I bugged out and went to Chicago. So by the time I get back, my parents had bought a house, and it was actually about 3 miles outside of town. It was an old parsonage for a church. It was up on the hill. As always, my dad is putting walls in and moving, like he's always DIY. I mean, we just could not walk into a home without him DIYing it. And it had a wood stove for our heat. There were these big holes in the floor upstairs, and they had these beautiful grates around them. And we'd never seen anything like that. I was like, what is that? That's so the heat can get upstairs. I'm like, oh my gosh, And I got to choose because I was the oldest. And so I had my bedroom downstairs. Everybody else was upstairs. My brother had the coolest room. But yeah, I wanted to be downstairs. And so, and I started school and made friends quickly. Had kind of a best friend. And she was a year under me. Ran with these kids who were a little bit nerdy, like them. Knew some, I see, the whole time I was in high school ever, I would never commit to a clique. I wouldn't. I didn't want to be restrained by having to stay in that clique. And you can't talk to these people, and you can't talk to these people, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I'm not playing that. Plus, in the back of my mind, I'm not going to be here long enough to really care about you enough to really obey this stuff, right? I'm a passer through here by this point. I'm a gypsy. So I could hang with all kinds of friends, sports friends, well, they weren't potheads. They were the kind of you know what I mean? Now we'd call them stoners, but I don't think that was happening. They would go outside and have a cigarette. Okay, so that's what they did. But I could hang with all different crowds, which was cool. I played volleyball. I don't think I did band there. I don't know if they had a band. So I did play volleyball. That was the only sport I did there. Although me and my brother started a skiing club, and we did go to Minnesota and ski, and it was ridiculous. It was so cold, and they had a snow maker, which was aimed right at the ski thing. So, oh my gosh, did they even have a ski lift? I'm thinking they had a rope lift. They didn't even have a ski lift. Maybe they did have a ski lift, but whatever it was, that snowmaker was aimed right at it. So it was like frigid cold, more cold than I'd ever experienced in my life. And they got snow blowing at you that they're having to make to put on this rather large hill, And so I mean, we knew it was going to measure up to Utah, which is the best snow on earth, and and mountains. So, but we were glad for the opportunity to ski, and so that was fun. We did do that and get that going. But high school mainly was just getting through it and not really giving a crap about it, as usual. I decided, since I had all these credits, pretty much didn't even need to be there. I had to take like English, and I don't even think I had to take a math class. I think the only class I had to take was English. And so, yeah, take English. Since I had so many screw around courses, I think I may have taken a home ec one, or I don't know what, but I took a small engine class. I'm like, I'm going to take an automotive class. That way I know what's what. And so I did do that, and that was very interesting, and learned how to take apart and put together a lawnmower engine. And a guy brought in his Volkswagen, and we helped work on that. That was pretty cool. The guys, it was all guys except for me, and they wanted to pull a prank on our teacher who was deaf. Now, I really liked our teacher. He was a cool guy to everyone. But we would, do our shop time, and then we'd go back into the classroom. And so we're in the classroom. And so they're like, okay, now when he's, everybody, because the bell would ring like quarter after. They say, now 10 after, everybody tilt your ear like, oh, you heard the bell go off. And then he'll dismiss us. And so we did that a couple times. And, I felt bad about it in my heart. It was not right to do. He was handicapped, but, overwhelmed. And I did it too. He looked at me, I think, as verification. And I did it too. So then he got in trouble because his class was releasing early. And he was very disappointed and hurt that we did this to him. And I felt so bad. And I made a decision that no matter what, I'm never going along with a crowd on something that is morally wrong, that I feel bad about. So that nipped that in the bud. I'll never do that again, ever. Never did do it again, never would do it again. So, and to do something unkind, like, that was never anything I ever did. I was never unkind to people. I never did unkind things to people. There's that movie, The Mean Girls. I never watched it. And, I had to deal with them, in junior high and stuff. I think I talked about it in maybe chapter 1, chapter 2, whatever, chapter 2. But in fact, I don't understand how people can purposefully hurt someone. I mean, I had been addictive. I had been vindictive when I was younger. I had done some things that were vindictive, but never drew the first punch. I never was that kind of person. I'll settle things, but I just never was mean to people, unprovoked mean to people. And that really, really stuck with me with that teacher. And the fact that he was disappointed in me, because I don't know, he must have thought something better of me. And here I really disappointed him. And that just crushed me. That was terrible. But, yeah, so that was one of the classes I took. Graduated high school. It's done. It's over. Walked. It's done. And to me, it was like I was being released from prison. Because school, as I said, it was just a nightmare. It's not that I struggle with my grades. And if I did, it was because I didn't give a crap. I just didn't care. I intellectually could have aced it. But I hated being there. I hated the whole... this is why I didn't go to college either. The whole, bureaucracy and the... people being lording over you, and when you get in anniversaries, you got to kiss their butts, and their egos and all. I'm done. I will not do that. And I made it in that system long enough to graduate, and I'm done. So yeah, the whole idea of school was hard. Rush Limbaugh used to call it screwel, and that's definitely what it was for me. It was screwel. They always tried to hammer me into something, or they were crushing me with their authority or whatever. There were teachers along the way that were excited about what they were teaching and, connecting with the kids. And I did so well in those classes, because they were engaged and, it wasn't a matter of just subjugating and torturing your kids. So it was done. Done. Yay. And my dad, was in food manufacturing. And that's why, we moved to another transfer and moved up here. And so, but before I got out of school, the guidance counselor was really pushing me. You need to go to college. You need to do. So I did take a drafting class in my senior year because I got to goof around. And I was being pushed to do some type of post-high school education. And what do you like? I'm like, well, I kind of like the drafting, so that's it. So signed up for our technical college and for technical drafting. If I'd have probably done civil engineering, I probably would have stuck with it. But drawing screws, I'm sorry, yawn. I mean, I did learn stuff from it. I can draw a straight line. But so I did go. Unfortunately, I took out a student loan because dad ain't going to pay. So, got to take out a student loan, and I went probably 2 months, 2.5 months, then just quit going to class. And, but that summer before I went to, the technical school, I got a job at my dad's factory. And so that was great. I worked 4 to midnight, and I was making more money than any of my classmates. I had income. I had a little car that they let me have. And of course, it fell apart and died all the time, but it was my car. I had a car. So I had a car and a job. And Frankie! Hey, Babu! And so, yeah. And to me, it was like, why am I going? I'm half asleep because I worked till midnight. I had to be up early, these classes and all this. I just like, I'm done. Frankie, come on, Babu! So scared. I live right near a road. And he's always good. He comes and checks in with me. But apparently he's running amok. So we'll just leave the door open a little bit more, and he'll come in, hopefully, soon. Anyway, so yeah, I had this job, and it was going pretty good. There are a couple guys at work that kind of my age, a little bit older, and, we joke around and hang out. And so that was, that fall after graduation. And then January, my parents are telling me that they're going to be moving to Arkansas. Not northwest Arkansas, northeast Arkansas. Over the Boot Hill of Missouri. I'm like, okay. And you're not coming. You've got a job. They helped me get an apartment. I paid for it, but they helped me find an apartment. And they gave me, like, the family couch, one of the couches. And, I could take my bed and blah, blah, blah. And so they said, you're all set up, so you're staying here and we're going down there. He says, I don't know what you do down there, so you got a job here, you're going to stay here. So they, the first part of January, that big old truck was loaded up, and I had my little Pinto, 74 Pinto or something, and powder blue. And my family drives off. And so, yeah. So I lost Stacy, my twin, leaving Utah. And we did have my stepsister for the summer. But now my whole family's gone. And I've lost my whole family. And I'm up here at the top of the United States. And I know the guys I work with, but don't know nobody. I'm stuck in this town. And I have my old friends from high school. I did see them for a while, but that kind of dissipated out, how it does. And so I'm up there on my own. And that will be the next chapter, because everything up to this point was about my family and all of that. This is where the next chapter will be me flying on my own. As far as the monstery things that were going on in my life, my dad never touched me in Wisconsin. Never touched me once. Yay, but it was a change, and I didn't understand it. Later, much, much later, I found out why. And when I found out why, I was so enraged. Yeah. Not because I was sad he wasn't touching me, but he'd moved on to other pastures. But my mother summoned up whatever courage she had and put a stop to it before it got too far. So I'm glad that happened. Sometimes I try to wonder why I wasn't important enough to stop. But thinking about that doesn't do me any good. I know that I'm free of it, of the abuse by both of my parents. And now I'm on my own, where I pretty much don't know but a handful of people. I reinvented myself every time we moved. And I'm going to reinvent myself again here. Because we're in a different town than where I went to high school. So I'm in a different town. I can reinvent myself again while in the same state. Only my foundation drove away along with the monsters. So yeah, I was in a situation. And that's where my next stories will be. But yeah, I graduated high school. And I learned some real big lessons. So that's it for that one. Thanks for listening. Love you. Bye.